Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad that you're here today. I am going to be starting a new series on my channel, and that is dedicated to authors in translation. And this all started 2 years ago now, which is insane. I posted an announcement video talking about how I wanted to start reading more Russian literature. And I, after that, went on this wonderful journey of reading a bunch of Russian classics, and I fell in love with them. And the more Russian literature I read, the more I wanted to read from other countries and other places and more authors in translation. And now I want to tell you guys about this mission of mine and get your suggestions, tell you guys which books I have loved from authors in translation and which books I want to read. So this is part recommendations, part TBR, part I'm going to be starting a series where I dedicate some videos to books in translation or authors in translation, specifically from different languages into English because that is my first language and I only, unfortunately, speak and read English. Anyway, so I'm going to share with you some of my favorite books that are in translation from different languages into English, and then I will share the books that I want to read that I own. There are so many that I don't own that I want to read, but these are all the ones that I own that I'll be showing you. So the first one is an all-time favorite. I talk about it quite a lot on my channel, but that is The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. This is translated from the French into English, and it is one of my favorite books. It is considered a children's classic, but I think this is one of those children's classics that anyone can read no matter your age. It really is ageless, and the messages behind it, just this story holds such a special place in my heart, and I can never recommend it enough. It is just an incredible book. The next book is another children's classic that I actually read this year and I loved it so much, and that is Heidi by Johanna Spyri. This is translated into English from the German, and I loved this. So when I was growing up, I watched the Shirley Temple Heidi movie adaptation, and that was such a comfort movie of my childhood. And reading the original story felt like I was a kid again, and it was just so wonderful. So this is set in the Swiss Alps, and it follows Heidi and her grandfather, and it's just such a heartwarming story. It's really perfect for any season. I was gonna say it's perfect for this time of year with the weather is getting colder and it's getting snowy, or it's going to hopefully get snowy. But yes, it's just such a wonderful book and I adored it. This is also the Puffin and Bloom edition. I love these so much, they're gorgeous. And yes, Heidi, highly recommend, such a great book. The next one we have is one of my favorite Russian classics, and that is The Heart of a Dog by Mikel Bulgakov. And this is, I always compare it to Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. If you love Frankenstein, or if you don't like Frankenstein, I feel like you'll love this book, because when I read Frankenstein 3 or 4 years ago, I didn't really love it, and I'm sorry, I thought it was a little bit slow. And I think what I wanted from Frankenstein is what I got in this book. I do want to reread Frankenstein because I have a feeling my opinion will probably change. But this book is about this doctor and professor who take the pituitary gland and testicles of a recently deceased man and put them into a dog, and then this dog becomes this dog man. And he is quite a wild creature, kind of like Frankenstein's creature. So, such a great book. I really want to read more Bulgakov, and you'll see that in the books that I want to read, my TBR for translated books. The next book is another favorite, and this one I read at the end of last year, and I loved it so much. It's another one of those books where I think like everyone at some point in their life should read it, and that is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. This is a book of philosophy written, originally written in Greek. It says, written in Greek by the only Roman emperor who was also a philosopher, without any intention of publication. Meditations is really Marcus Aurelius's journals and an insight into his mind and his philosophy and his way of thinking, and it's such an incredible book, and it really made me think, and I thought it was wonderful. So again, another one that I highly recommend. The next one is another one of my favorites, and that is Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes. This was originally written in Spanish, and I just love this story so much. There are so many emotions captured in this book, and it's just such a wild adventure. It's such a wild time. It's basically about Don Quixote, who has read so many chivalry novels that he kind of is under the illusion that he is a knight in shining armor, and he is going to fight beasts and save damsels in distress, and he has a sidekick, or yeah, kind of like a best friend sidekick. It's like one of the original hero sidekick stories or tropes, Sancho Panza, and I just love their dynamic together. I just love the fact that Don Quixote read so many books that it changed his mind and it made him, you know, think that he was a knight errant. And it reminds me of what Jane Austen does in Northanger Abbey, which I am currently reading, where our main character Catherine has read so many Gothic novels that when she stays in her friend's abbey, she kind of imagines that there is a mystery going on and that there's something going on, and it's because she's read so many stories that it kind of influences her perception of her real life, and I just think that that's such a fun concept. So yes, also highly recommend Don Quixote. It's such a great book. Okay, this next book, I don't think anyone will be surprised that it is in this video. It had to be in this video, and that is Anakaren by Leo Tolstoy. This is my favorite book absolutely ever. I have read it, I have reread it, I just adore every single sentence, every single page. It is just such a fantastic book. If you get anything out of my channel, it's to read Anna Karenina, and so many people have messaged me saying that they have read Anna Karenina and they never thought that they'd read it, but they did after watching my videos and they love it. And I never expected, before I read this book, I never expected to read it myself either, because I was always so daunted, especially by Russian literature, and I think my whole goal is to raise awareness that you can read the books that you think you can't, or that maybe you're intimidated by. Saying that, there are so many books on my shelves that I am intimidated by and still I'm scared to read. But anyway, Anna Karenina, it captures humanity so perfectly, and Leo Tolstoy is just a master. I adore this book more than I can say, and I think you should read it. This translation is by Richard Pavir and Larissa Volokonsky. I also love the mod translation of Anna Karenina. I have a whole video on Anna Karenina translations, so I will link that somewhere. But yes, Anna Karenina. Please read it if you have not. The next book is another one of my all-time favorites, and that is Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. So this technically isn't translated from Japanese into English, but Kazuo Ishiguro is a Japanese-born British novelist. And so I didn't know whether I should include him in this video or not, but I don't know. You tell me. It is written in English, so I feel like I shouldn't include it, but this is one of my favorite books, so I always want to talk about it. Recently, my best friend Emma, from her YouTube channel Emmy, I went to Canada to visit her, and I stayed with her, and she recently read this while I was visiting, and she didn't like it. Sadly. Very sadly. But I feel like this is kind of like you either aren't really bothered by the book or you really, really love it. I am of the opinion that I really, really love it. She wasn't really bothered by it. So I highly recommend it. See how you feel about it. Let me know what you think about it if you do read it. It is just one of my favorite books ever, and I always want to talk about my favorite books. So yeah. That's Never Let Me Go. The next book is another one of my all-time favorites. I, again, just can never not talk about it, and it was translated from one language into English, and that is A Man Called Uwe by Fredrik Backman. This was translated from the Swedish into English, and it is just... I love all of Fredrik Backman's books. I have a lot of my Kazuo Ishiguro books here, and I also have my Fredrik Backman books. You can't see them, but they're over there. And I love all of his books, but A Man Called Uwe is one of my all-time favorites of his, as well as the Beartown series, but I just chose to show you this one. This is about a very grumpy middle-aged man who is trying to figure out what he wants to do with his life after his wife sadly passes away, and they had such a beautiful love, and he doesn't really know what to do with himself. He's very frustrated with the world, and it's just such a beautiful story about found family and friendship and the beauty of human connection, and it's just so emotive and wonderful, and it's one of my favorite books ever. so I had to mention it. The next book is another one of my favorites, and I very, very recently read it, and that is The Housekeeper and the Professor by Yoko Ogawa, and this is translated from the Japanese. This is also the beautiful Vintage Japan series, which I just adore. They're so beautiful, and the beautiful outside matches the beautiful inside. This is about a housekeeper who comes to work for a professor who only has 80 minutes of memory, and it's about their dynamic. It's about the housekeeper's son and the professor creating a bond with one another, and it's just such a beautiful story about human connection as well as memory loss, and it was just explored in such a gorgeous way. I just loved every second of this book, and I would love to read more from Yoko Ogawa. Yeah, she has a book called The Memory Police that I've heard a lot about, so I would really love to read that one as well, but all of her books. So this is just such an incredible book. I highly recommend it if you haven't read it. And then another Japanese book that's translated into English. I read it this year and I loved it so much. And it was my first from this author, and that is Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami. I know so many people love Haruki Murakami, and I can see why, because when I read this book, I was just so taken by how he explored, again, human connection. That's like the one key thing that I look for in all literature, is how different authors handle human connection and human relationships. That's really what I'm interested in. And it's just such a gorgeous coming-of-age story, and I really want to read more from Haruki Murakami. Those are all of the translated books that I wanted to mention. I have read much more translated literature than just these, but these are the ones that I own that I have read and highly recommend. There are many that I actually don't own, which I would love to get copies of, like Meiko Kawakami. I have read Breasts and Eggs and Heaven, and I have loved both of those books, and I really want to read more from her. She is one of my favorite new-to-me authors. So these are the books that I recommend. There are so many more that I also recommend, but maybe that will be for another video. Now I'm going to tell you guys about the books that I haven't read. Let me get them. The books that I haven't read that I really want to read. Most of them are classics, although, well, I think the thing is, a lot of the contemporary books in translation I just don't have copies of, but I have a lot of classics in translation that I do have copies of, so those are the ones that I'll be showing you. But there are so many on my Goodreads want to read list that are also in translation. I just don't own any copies of them yet. But anyway, the first one is Swedish. It is translated from the Swedish into English, and that is The 100-Year-Old Man Who Climbed Out of the Window and Disappeared by Jonas Jonasson. And this is another one, like a lot of people compare it to A Man Called Uwe, where if you like Uwe, then you will like The 100-Year-Old Man Who Climbed Out the Window and Disappeared. So the back says, "You're never too old for an adventure. Sitting quietly in his room in an old people's home, Alan Carlson is waiting for a party he doesn't want to begin, his 100th birthday party to be precise. The mayor will be there, the press will be there, but as it turns out, Alan will not." So I just think that I will adore this book, and it really does remind me of A Man Called Uwe, and it was also written originally in Swedish. So I'm very excited about this one. I look forward to seeing what adventures Alan gets up to. The next one is Siddhartha, or Siddhartha by Herman Hesse? You tell me. I apologize for my mispronunciation. The back says, "Seeking means to have a goal, but finding means to be free." And that I love so much. I should say this is translated from the German, and I have not read any Herman Hesse before, or Hesse, and I would love to. I've heard great things, and I don't really want to know what this book is about. I kind of want to be surprised, but the back, I love that quote that they have. This is also the Pan Macmillan Collector's Library editions. I love these. You guys can see them on my shelves. They're some of my favorites to collect. And then we have another German classic, and that is Goethe's The Sorrow of Young Werther. I have heard many things about this book. Number one, that it is incredibly sad and depressing. and I'm here for it. I love when a book can emotionally wreck me. I'm very excited. So I believe, I don't really want to know too much about this because it is quite short, so we're going to not read the back. The next one is another one that I am so incredibly excited to read, and that is The Book of Disquiet by Fernando Pessoa. This is translated from the Portuguese, and I have heard, again, incredible things about this book, and I love Pessoa's poetry, so I really want to read The Book of Disquiet and read more Pessoa. So yes, very, very, very eager to read this one as well. This stack is getting very tall. I hope it does not fall over. I think we're good. The next book is a Norwegian classic, and that is Sigrid Undset's Kristin Lavnsdatter. This is the first in the series called The Wreath, and this was sent to me by a subscriber, so thank you so much for sending this to me. Set in 14th century Norway, The Wreath begins the life story of Kristin Lavnsdatter, starting with Kristin's childhood and continuing through her romance. I don't want to read too much again, I don't really want to be spoiled, but I would love to read a Norwegian book I haven't yet, and so I would love to read from different places and authors that I haven't read yet. Okay, alright. I had to put it on this list. I don't know when I will read it. Maybe in 2024? We'll see. It's The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. I'm terrified of this book. It's just, like, can you blame me? It is so long. It is so long. Like, how do you even... How do you even? Yes, this is the classic revenge story. That's really all I know about it. I don't want to know too much. Translated from the French. I have read, and I do love Les Mis, which is translated from the French as well, by written by Victor Hugo. I love Les Mis. I didn't put it on this list. It is such an incredible book. Anyway, I'm just scared. I'm just scared. I know so many of you love it, and so many of you want me to read it, and I will read it, I promise. When? I don't know. Maybe 2024. But yes, I will. I must. I really must. Okay, now it might fall. Okay, we're good. This next book I am so excited to get to at some point, and that is The Master and Margarita by Mikel Bulgakov. So he wrote The Heart of a Dog, which I talked about earlier, and this is, I feel like, the book that he is most widely known for. It's so wild and crazy, and I don't even know really what the plot is. I know that the devil plays a role. I know that there are biblical references. Another one that I didn't put on this list is The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky, or White Nights, or Crime and Punishment, or Notes from Underground. I highly recommend any book by Dostoevsky because he's another one like Leo Tolstoy, who I adore. But I wanted to not put every single Russian classic that I've read on this list. There's also, yeah, a black cat who I believe talks. So we have a dog that becomes half man. We have a talking cat. I'm just very excited. I'm very excited. Can't wait to read it. Hopefully 2024. We shall see. This is getting very scary. Okay, so this is the only Dostoevsky on my shelves that I haven't read, and I would really love to read all of Dostoevsky's work in my lifetime. There's no rush, but maybe at least one a year. And that is Notes from a Dead House by Fyodor Dostoevsky, translated from the Russian, and this was given to me by my friend Sarah from her YouTube channel, Sarah's Perusals. So Sarah, thank you so much. I can't wait to read it. This is also translated by Richard Pevere and Larissa Volokonsky, and the Everyman's editions are so beautiful. I love them so much. I also have Crime and Punishment in the Everyman's edition. I mean, are you kidding? They're just so beautiful and very well made. The paper is so thick. The bindings are just fantastic. There's a ribbon bookmark. I just love these so much. Anyway, I don't really know what Notes from a Dead House is about, and I, again, don't really want to know anything about Dostoevsky. Highly recommend. I want to read all of his works, so he is on both lists, both recommend and TBR. Alright, and now we have the last book that I'm going to share with you that is on my TBR, and that is the Inferno by Dante. So this is translated from the Italian. So if you don't know, I am Italian. Both of my parents are Italian, and their parents were all Italian. So I am pretty much 100% Italian. I know very, very little Italian. Very, very little. I wish I knew more, and I would love to learn Italian, but anyway. So I really want to read more Italian literature, and I do have a few books that are originally written in Italian translated into English, but I would love to know your recommendations. I really want to read Dante's Inferno because it's Dante's Inferno? I kind of feel like I should have already read this. I also really want to read this because of Hozier. He is an Irish musician, and he just came out with his newest album called Unreal Unearth, and a lot of the songs were inspired by Dante's Inferno, and I was watching a lot of his interviews because he was talking about his influence. Hearing him talk about Dante's Inferno and his inspiration really made me want to read it. So I already wanted to read this book, and then listening to Hozier's songs and hearing him speak about it, I just really want to read this. Oh, this is a bilingual edition! This is so cool. Oh, it's illustrated by Mikel as well. Wow. This is such a beautiful edition. Okay, so on the left, that is so cool. On the left, it's Italian, and on the right, it's English. Oh my gosh, maybe I will start learning Italian by reading by reading the Inferno. I doubt it, but that is amazing. Oh wow. Look at that. That's incredible. I just opened up to a random page and it says, "And the leader made a trumpet of his ass." Nice, very nice. Okay, out of context, that I mean, maybe even in context it would be funny as well. Yeah, I am just very eager to read this one. Again, don't know exactly when, but hopefully some point in the near future. So these are all of the books that I had to share with you. This stack is very scary. I don't want it to fall over, but yes, you see them. As well as this one, which I don't even think you'd be able to see. Yeah, no. So these are all the books that I wanted to share with you. The books that I recommend, the books that I want to read, all from authors in translation. Again, I would love to know which books you recommend. Right now, I don't know how many translated books I've read this year, but I will let you know at the end of the year. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you're excited about this series that I will be having on my channel. And if you want to join me on this journey, you are more than welcome. You can follow along. So I hope to see you again in another video very soon. I am sending you my very best wishes, and as always, happy reading.